Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is...
The Wellness Journey inspires, enlightens, and informs women over 40 and all the people who love them. It is a journey that we will take with tips from authors, doctors, and practitioners of holistic living. During this show, experts in the field will provide tips, tools, and techniques that are fun and simple for all to try. Come join me on this journey. Get inspired, get informed, and get well. Hi, this is Lennis, and welcome to the Wellness Journey podcast series, where this particular series we are focusing on living your life like it's golden. Why did I choose that particular theme? Well, it's not because necessarily we're all headed to our golden years. That's a given. But because living your life like it's golden really means living your life with value, getting into the flow of positive energy, and really doing the work that's needed in order to have a well and thriving life. I truly believe that there are all different kinds of ways that we can do that. And today we're going to be talking about something that I feel very strongly about because I've experienced what can happen when you begin to talk about and work on the healing of the soul. Today we have with us Dr. Katherine T. Kelly, PhD and MSPH. She was named the pioneer of soul health, and I can attest to the fact that's absolutely true. After she published her book, Soul Health, Aligning with Spirit for Radiant Living, which was recently released as a revised second edition. She has been featured on over 300 national and international radio shows, podcasts, and television stations, and is widely regarded among both the medical community and the public. Dr. Kelly has received specialized training from the Mind Body Medical Institute of Harvard University, and she's also been trained in various holistic, natural health, and spiritual methods of healing, including soul realignment, past life regression therapy, and other soul-based techniques. She provides classes, workshops, and retreats throughout the United States and offers soul health journeys, which are transformational travel excursions throughout the world. And I am so excited to finally have Dr. Kelly on with us on the Wellness Journey podcast series. Welcome. You made it. We made it.
Yeah.
I'm saying, thank you. Yes, I'm saying that because we've had several mishaps around schedules and signals and internet. You name it, we've dealt with it. But I guess the planets have aligned and
Absolutely.
You are here. And I'm actually able to see you because the other shows we've done have been audio. So thank you so much, Dr. Kelly, for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back and for weathering the many storms that we've had.
Yes. So let's get right to it because I love talking about your topic because I learn something every single time. But for those who haven't heard you on my show, tell us why you're so passionate about the importance of the healing of the soul.
It is a long story, but I'll try to condense it because it comes from a personal experience. My father had an accident when I was 9 years old. And being a fairly observant 9-year-old, I was watching what was going on in the family. My dad was medically disabled. My mother had to go back to work, basically, part-time, quarter to three-quarters time, making minimum wage to try to feed basically 5 kids and also husband and herself. And it was a really challenging time. So I saw all of the, what I call the branches of the human condition start to fall apart. But then you fast forward till the age when I was 21, when my father was in the hospital and we just found out on Christmas Day that year that he was going to pass away. And I was standing by his bed when the priest walked in to do his final blessing. And when he saw the priest, he turned and looked at me, and I was standing on his right side, and he just penetrated my own soul with his fear. And when I saw that fear in his eyes, I realized that there was something much more broken than the human condition. And so what happened with him way back, when I was age 9, all of that transpired now to me understanding that healing takes much more than healing the human condition. It takes much more than looking at just the surface kinds of things. You really have to go much deeper. And whatever broke with my father at that time is now my mission to help other people heal.
Because you're saying that the fear that he had was tied into so many other things that had nothing to do with his current body condition. Right. It was the accumulation of all the other things perhaps or experiences, or it could have been one main traumatic experience. But I feel like generally when it comes to soul healing, it's the accumulation of trauma that we never really heal from, because traditionally in Western society, we don't even talk about the soul. Right. And, you know, I find that your training is amazing because you went to Harvard and actually studied part of this modality. What was that like? What did you study? What did you learn?
Well, that was a training program that came after my PhD and my MSPH, and it was basically teaching mind-body medicine, which was really getting into the whole idea that the mind, the body, and to me, again, the soul, we see them separately, but they integrate so connectedly. And so the fact is, we've got to look at all of the pieces and parts, or we're only going to get so far. You know, going back to my father's health, and I'll tie this into that training. Mm-hmm. Medically, there was no reason why he could not have come back to where he was. Mm-hmm. But something had broken so deeply within himself that he could not motivate himself to do the physical therapy. Mm-hmm. He stopped taking care of himself. He got very depressed and forlorn. And he basically, I think his soul died to such a deep extent back then. So this training that I went to at Harvard really helped me understand the integration of all of those and how important it is for us to really look at those pieces and parts, because, you know, and I want to throw some statistics out there. Over 95% of patients would like their healthcare providers to talk about spirituality and the soul in their healthcare sessions, and less than 5% do.
Oh, I know that is true from my own experiences. Yes, yes.
And, you know, some of that is time. The average amount of time spent in a physician's office is less than 7 minutes. They don't have time to address the soul because, as we know, the soul is very complex and people don't quite know how to define it. So it's even more passionate for me to help people really look at their health from a deeper level, because it is lacking in so many other aspects of our healthcare.
Well, what is soul health, and how do you go about attaining a healthy soul?
Well, let me first start by defining what the soul is, because in my book, Soul Health Aligning with Spirit for Radiant Living, I define the soul very simply because, you know, it's not a religious term. The soul is basically the essence of who we are. That's it. It's the essence of who we are. But if you look at most of the healing modalities that are out there, they're trying to heal symptoms. They're trying to heal a protocol of something that is sort of a cognitive or an intellectually formed plan to heal, but it never gets deep to the soul. So soul health to me is really the understanding of the integration of all of the branches of the human condition, which I have my book right here with all of the branches. It's the understanding that we have to go deeper, and it's that understanding that we have to align ourselves with our lives in each one of those branches in order to really feel that radiance that we all desire.
Yes.
So it's the alignment, it's the understanding of what we need or don't need in our lives. And then it's a conscious and proactive and intentional process to get ourselves to lead our lives in that kind of way, because when we do, our lives line up.
I've had some experience with soul healing with you. We were talking, and I did it in regards to abundance and prosperity, because I felt like there were some blocks in terms of why I wasn't able to make the kind of money that I felt I should have been making. And the amazing thing about that experience was some of the work we did around what had happened with my ancestors, and also what had happened with past lives. Now, what does that have to do with our soul health? Why is that a factor in how our soul heals?
Well, and basically it's a factor because whatever we don't finish in past lives, we bring forward. Because unfinished business is unfinished business. So wherever our soul starts or ends in one lifetime, it's where we start in the next one. And we may have a different configuration of what our details of life look like, but the essence of that life lesson is always going to be there until we clear it, until we fix it, until we understand it and integrate it. So when I do past life regression work, it's often to help people understand that maybe, and I'll use the abundance, that maybe in a past life you had a life where you stole from someone else, and that's why now you're having abundance issues. Or maybe you overused or manipulated someone for money in a past life, and now people really struggle in this lifetime. Or maybe there was a scarcity of abundance in a past life, and so you come to this one and you still carry that idea that that's how you're supposed to live, even though you had a brand new chance by living a new life. So from a past life perspective, that's how that can really come together. And again, you know, it's soul work. The energy of the soul never dies. So whatever unfinished stuff that we have from past ones, we're going to bring into new ones.
And it's interesting because I know that for Western medicine, for tradition medicine, and also for the Judeo-Christian ethic and what they think about this whole past life regression thing doesn't seem to be relevant. But I can tell you from my own experience, some of the things that came up as a result, memories of things that I don't recall having lived in my life, and also the memories from the outside, from the inside looking out. I could tell I wasn't the same person. This was another person. It felt like and looked like another person. It came out in my dreams after our session, and it came out in my journaling also. Things that I didn't know that were there, that it hadn't have anything to do with something that I could recall doing.
Right. You know, and what's interesting is, you know, I'm working on another book, and that has to do with soul age, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in another session.
Wow, yes.
Because it's fascinating how that impacts us too. But as part of the research, I was curious how many people in the world believe in reincarnation. And some of the research that came was really kind of fascinating, because some of the studies that came up showed that over 37 to 40% of Christians actually believe in reincarnation, but they don't talk about it. And also the mass exodus from churches that happened in 2012, 2013, one of the main reasons was that people were leaving the churches because they felt like there was too structured or rigid of a system. And yet people were having these past life experiences and having these feelings that, okay, there's something more extensive here, more intricate here. And it can't be found in a lot of the, you know, traditional settings of churches. So it's really fascinating. And, you know, the historical biblical history shows that actually reincarnation was in the Bible prior to about 500 AD. And you know, there's pretty strong evidence that it was Constantine, the ruler Constantine, that took it out of the Bible, basically because he wanted to control what was happening in the public. So reincarnation is not new. It's just been muffled for a very long time.
Isn't that interesting? It just seems to go throughout the ages that leaders want to control certain kinds of information so that they can control the masses, so that, because information is power. Information is power. And if you don't have the information, then you're not as powerful. It's interesting. What's old back then isn't new today. It's the same thing. Everything old again is new today, whatever that old saying is. There it is right there. Now, one of the things that you talk about in your book is you say that you want to help people to evolve instead of just to heal. What does that mean, and why is that important?
So most, if not all, healing modalities are about bringing a person from wherever they were wounded back up to where they were at the time of the wounding. Most of those healing modalities don't talk about bringing them forward and helping them evolve beyond even where they were. But I use the words evolution to help instruct people, because the fact that, and I'm sure you can attest to this, the difficult things that we go through are really part of our evolution, but it's what we do with it that takes us there. So everybody I know has had these difficult experiences or traumas or tragedies, and in the middle of it, you can't really learn, but in retrospect, people look back and go, oh, wow, I wouldn't be where I am now without those experiences.
Yes, I can definitely say that. I got into this business, as you know, as a result of having an anxiety disorder. And that anxiety disorder came over time as a result of the trauma I experienced when my mother was suddenly killed, hit by a fire truck on her way to work. You know, fast forward many, many years later, I have this anxiety disorder. I decided to take some time off to figure out how I can holistically heal the anxiety without taking a pharmaceutical. And I stumble upon the mind, body, spirit movement and what that was all about. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago in July 18th, 10 years ago is when I left corporate America. And now here I am. So out of trauma, if we allow it, can provide a trajectory into something else that we're supposed to experience. And it's all on how we encode it and how we grow from that. And I've done a lot of work, as you know, I've done a lot of work to deal with the anxiety and still produce and all that stuff. And the anxiety for the most part is gone. It's gone. But what I have learned though, in the course of all of this is that everything happens for a reason and that there is no such thing as coincidence.
Or accident, or I don't even like the words serendipity.
No, right.
Serendipity is, if you look in Webster's dictionary, they call it a fortunate accident, but it's fortunate, but it's not an accident. So I absolutely agree with you. And, also in the book, I use the words conscious evolution, and that is also a part of soul health, that in order for us to evolve, we have to be conscious of not only the fact that we need to move beyond where we were, but we have to learn to be conscious of that soul and what it needs and what it doesn't need in order to thrive. Because, I use the word alignment over and over again, because if you think about that gut reaction that we all have, we all know times when we have not listened to it and then life has gotten misaligned. Well, that gut reaction is the voice of the soul. It is that loud kind of wrenching kind of language, really, that is trying to get our attention to guide us. So that consciousness, that awareness of listening deep within is really like a GPS system that will take us where we need to go, but we have not been trained to use our soul. We, as you said, this society, this community, this culture does not value the use of the soul, but I'm changing that.
Right.
That is my mission, is to get it back into mainstream.
Yeah, it's important because I think it's a tool that we have that can help us survive some of the things that are going on right now today. In fact, I wanted to ask you, how do you apply your soul health model to some of the things that are going on in the news today?
Well, and that's a huge one. In fact, my newsletter that comes out tomorrow is another reminder of how to use it, because the whole idea that as we consciously evolve, we have to look at what is discomforting us and see what the lessons are in that. Now, I don't know anybody who can sit and watch the news and be comfortable.
Yeah.
So if you use that whole mindset of, okay, I'm going to consciously evolve through this, then you have to look to see what is happening all around you in order to start to integrate and say, what am I supposed to learn from this? How can I seek guidance from this? Now, my newsletter, I think it's going to get a few people, because, I say that we have needed this kind of government for a while. And people cringe and bristle when I say that, but we've needed all of the embodiment of all the things that we are trying to outgrow to be right in front of us in order for us to go, ooh, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yes.
And so if you really look at what's happening, it's I call it beautifully ugly. Because there's boy, you turn on the news, something else horrible has happened. But if we can, from a soul perspective, look at it from, gosh, what am I supposed to be learning from all of the sexism that's happening? What am I supposed to be learning from the racism that's happening, or the LGBT, issues, or the abortion issues, or the lies that are happening, or you could just go on and list. And it's the corruption in the government, overspending. There's nothing that couldn't reflect on us. There's nothing that is happening in the world that we either haven't done or we haven't been affected by.
Right.
So it's that consciousness, and that's that soul base of going, gosh, how can I live through this? What am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to thrive beyond this?
That is so true. And I have to say that with what's going on right now, one of the things that I realize is that as the young generation will say, you have to get woke. You know,
Yep.
we have been living kind of, not, I don't want to say just happenstance, but not really showing up in our lives, not really being engaged, handing over major decisions to anyone, people we don't know, just assuming that these things are going to get done, taking so many things for granted. And now that some of these things are being challenged, or in some cases changing, a great majority of us are like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, it's waking us up. And I do think, and of course, many people may not agree with me, but I do think out of this will be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. It'll be something that's even better, something that that most people who are supporting the current environment would not think was going to happen as a result of supporting the current environment. And I really do feel that, because when you take a look at the numbers of people who are just so outdone, I think to myself, well, good. Well, good.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's it. And you know, and I, people don't like it when I say this, but we have to be uncomfortable enough to want to change something.
Exactly. Isn't that human nature though? We just, you know, if it's comfortable, then why change it?
Right. And I tell people we either you need to be tired enough of ourselves or our situations in order to evolve. And I think I totally agree with you that that's what our current situation and culture is about, is watching this every day and experiencing it firsthand, which, you know, lots of people are, in order to go, whoa, no, I don't want to live that way anymore. How can
I make the change?
And more and more people are waking up.
Yeah, and I think so. So what kind of tips or what kind of information can you share with our listeners in terms of how to cope with what's going on right now? How do they go about starting to live more of a soul-based living?
Absolutely. Well, and from a current perspective in coping, I think number one is minimizing our exposure to all of the repetitive news that's out there. All you need is the headline. So you don't need any more than that. So limiting that. And I think also then looking and examining what is it that's making you uncomfortable, and take that and learn from it. Because that, again, is your initiation into evolution right there, is when you're uncomfortable. That's what you need to look at. It's most people want to turn the other way, but it's what you need to look at. Yes. The other thing, just from a general perspective with soul-based living, is, again, it's conscious evolution. Just start paying attention to what it is that is not working in your life and what would more likely work in your life. Because, and I know that sounds very vague in general, but most people don't take even 5 minutes to say what was working in my day and what didn't work in my day. It can take as little as a few minutes a day to just do that quick assessment and make one decision that is going to help you live a more soul-based life.
Wow, that's it. I like that idea.
Just one decision. I have a client who, and I'm going to throw this up here again with my model. I have a client who, when I first gave that to her, she was looking at it going, gosh, I've got a lot of work to do. But then the next time she came in, she said that she had taped a copy of it in her laundry room, because the laundry room is where she gets the most solitude, because nobody else wants to fold laundry. And so she goes in there, she's folding laundry, and she's looking at the soul health model and making a plan for the day. Oh, you know what? I need to do this day, or I need to call a friend, or I need to balance this part of my life. Takes her 5 to 10 minutes to fold that laundry basket. That's all she needed in order to create an intentional mindset that she could more soulfully live that day.
Yes.
So we think it has to take so much work, and it doesn't.
You know, it's interesting because basically to me, living a life that is soul-based or soul-based living is really starting to show up in your life and being present and truly experiencing it instead of just going through the motions. Because the reality is, especially in Western culture, we don't show up in our lives. We're so preoccupied with all the stuff that's going on, all the distractions, the cell phones, the social media, our kids, our husband, our lives, all this stuff that, you know, we're not maybe to protect ourselves, we're not showing up.
Right.
But I can tell you from having gone to those sessions, my life is so much richer as a result of showing up in my life and being present.
Right. And that is it right there. And I call it showing up for your soul.
Yes.
A few newsletters ago, I wrote the entire article was, how do you show up for your soul? How do you wake up? How do you stay present? How do you go, oh, wait, I'm not listening? How do you stay very, very, again, conscious and aware? But we have to show up for our soul. The soul is the essence of who we are. If we are not showing up for the essence of who we are, we're going to live someone else's life.
Mm. Isn't that interesting? Because those other past lives kind of come trickling in because you're not, and this is just bothering me, so I have to say it. Dr. Kelly graciously wrote an article for our magazine, the summer edition of the Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond magazine, and she wrote an article about soul health. And unfortunately, there were typos because I just got this thing from my web guys saying that we put the wrong one up, not the corrected copy. So I have to publicly apologize to you, and we're going to fix it. Because that just bothers me, and I don't know if that was my past soul or my current soul. But the difference is that I might say that to you off air before I started being more present in my life. But now, when something's coming up that's bothering me, I have to release it and say it, and not keep it inside, because I know that that it will just eat away at me. Before what that would become is part of my cavalcade of atrocities that I would play back anytime I was beating up on myself when you're so terrible. And remember that article you did, because I never released it in the proper way by verbally acknowledging it. But what I've learned is that when I deal with it and verbally acknowledge it, then it's not part of my cavalcade of atrocities. It was a mistake that was made that's going to be corrected. And I think that is a huge part of learning how to show up in your life, is not being afraid to identify those things that make you uncomfortable.
Right. And that is a beautiful example of showing up for your soul. And I use the word owning it. Think about owning it. When you own whatever it is that is misaligned in your life, it's almost like an intervention you do for yourself, and your soul just goes, yay, I'm aligned again. And it pulls you back into that alignment.
And it is saying yay, because I just realized something. I just had an aha moment. This was supposed to happen.
Okay, great.
It was supposed to happen so that I could really tell my listeners, here's an example of something that was out of alignment that I had to talk about to bring it back into alignment, so that it does not become what I call my cavalcade of atrocities, or somebody else, it could be their beat up, or the thing that they hammer themselves, or the thing that's running in your subconscious background, that script. You're not good enough, you make mistakes, because that script, that negative self-talk, the lies that we tell ourselves, are all entrenched in the idea that once you begin to show up and begin that soul healing process, then those things don't run your life any longer.
And that's it. And I talk so much with people about regret, because regret to me is the voice of the soul. The voice of the soul is saying something is misaligned. And so, the words for you would be that you would have regretted not realigning what had just happened with that.
Right.
But that's the beauty of soul health, is that your soul just got happy again because of the fact that you owned the situation. And I wasn't upset. I was just trying to help the magazine be better.
Right.
But for
Absolutely.
you, it was one of those things that you want to be the best you possible, which is what all of us want.
Right.
And so for that, it means, what do I need to do to align? And if all of us could just do one thing every day to go, what do I need to own today? What do I need to align today? And it could be no different than, gosh, I need to drink more water and I'm going to do it. That could be what you need to do to align today. Or it could be, I really need to apologize to this person. That's another form of alignment. Or it could be, man, I'm tired. I need to get more sleep. So you go to bed early. You get more sleep. You align. That's what soul health is. My model is, it has the 10 branches of the human condition that all of us deal with. And so it's soul health is not some magical kind of thing. It's a day-by-day, moment-by-moment choice that we have to make that is really about alignment. The more we align in our human lives, the more our souls just become radiant and evolve. So we can't have one without the other. And you're right, that is a prime example of one way to get that soul saying, woo, great, awesome.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting and I think this is important too, as you're going through this process of aligning your soul, because I want all my listeners to go through this, because I want you to buy the book, and we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of where you can get the book, because it's important. As you go through these processes and you realize that you're in your moment, that you have that aha, you have to celebrate it. You have to recognize it, because this is a huge step to be able to realign yourself and get yourself back on track, instead of leaving that in the emotional closet, to the point that when you finally open up that emotional closet, all this stuff comes flying out. I call it the foot on the foot on the shoe issue. You know how you're at a party and someone steps on your foot, and you're like, ah, then you go all off, and everybody's like, God, what's wrong with him? Well, it's not so much about the idea of the person stepping on your foot. It's not that one so-called atrocity. It's the accumulation of occurrences that you've never addressed. And so when something finally happens that makes you say, ow, next thing you know, it's not ow, it's like, what? And that's why it's important for us to bring ourselves back into alignment and to connect with those things that are running in the background that really don't have to be running there. They don't have to be a part of your script.
Right. And I want to throw in, really, I'm going to use that as a segue to throw in an idea which is why I put out the second edition of the book. You know, the first edition was published in 2013. And to me, at the time, it was complete. But then as time went on, a couple book coaches asked me, gosh, is there anything you would change? Is there anything you would do differently? And I call myself closure queen. When I finish something, I usually believe I'm done. Until they started asking me that question. And I said, well, yeah, there is something that I would add in there. And this is going to be a big one. So those of you that are listening, you're going to swallow really hard when I say this. What I realized was that we cannot have soul health without self-love. Every single condition, every single malady, every single concern, every single thing we trip over in life can be led back to a lack of self-love. Everything. And when I realized that, I went on this other mission to help people understand that we don't get into relationships to learn how to love someone else better. We get into relationships to learn how to love ourselves better. And if we are not in a good relationship with ourselves, we are not going to be doing the work to align our lives. We are not going to be owning up to what we need to. We are not going to be taking care of ourselves in that loving way that we try to take care of other people. So that's that whole new level of what I put into the new book, is helping people understand that it is not about something outside of us. We have to, as we are evolving, and I'm going to say something that's going to be an even bigger whammy in a second, but as we are evolving, we have to learn self-love. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere. So here's the part 2 of this. And this is partially what's going to be in the next book. But you know, I was pondering, why is it that we reincarnate? Why is it, you know, and I was thinking about this over the last few years as I'm starting to write this other book, and I'm doing the soul realignment work, and I'm doing the past life regression work. And literally one morning I was putting my breakfast dishes in the dishwasher, and I was leaning over, putting them in, and it hit me. We reincarnate, we come back, we have those opportunities to relearn and relearn and relearn, because we haven't learned to love ourselves enough to evolve beyond our old stuff. That makes sense?
Yes, it does. And it's interesting because it's kind of an oxymoron. If you know, you look for the validation through others and you haven't even validated yourself yet. You look for the love through others and you haven't learned to love yourself yet, which is hence one of the reasons why we go through so many different love relationships and things like that, because it's really not about the other person. It's really all about you and the work that you need to do. And the work is it's a solitary journey. It doesn't necessarily have to involve other people, but because we're oriented towards the idea that validation comes from others, we keep doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result, which of course, as they say, is the definition of insanity. But I agree with you about that self-love, because I'm 61 years old and I really didn't start learning to love myself until my 60th year. There was a circumstances and events that led to an aha moment. I'll never forget it. November 3rd, 2017, where I finally got it.
Okay.
And that was before we had our session. But the session just kind of added more to it, so that, all the other things I've been doing since that time have had so much more of a powerful impact, because I am ready. I think part of healing the soul is that you have to make up your mind that you're ready to receive it.
Right.
That you're ready to receive. And I think it's difficult for some people to receive some of these messages and some of these other healing modalities because of all the unforgiveness that they have, all the fears, anger, and all the stuff that needs to be emptied out.
Right.
What is one way to begin to empty that out, doctor? How can we begin to get rid of those fears and anxieties and what I call blessing blockers? How can we begin to get rid of that so that we can heal our soul?
Well, and there's thousands of ways probably, and several of the ways that I work on that with clients are, I really have them write letters to their own soul of apology. And so literally have them sit down with some paper and no distractions, get that darn cell phone out of the way, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And start writing to your soul saying, gosh, wow, I've really missed you. I've really been disconnected from you. These are the ways that I've hurt you by not honoring myself. These are the ways that I have not shown self-love. These are the ways that I know that I've gone out of alignment, or that I knew I was out of alignment, but I chose not to get in alignment. So it's owning it and just kind of flushing it out on paper. And it's beautiful what happens when a person is willing to surrender to that paper and just write what comes, because boy, you can get some wrenching cries out of it and some wrenching.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Then you are talking to your soul. And to me, that is the number one reason people don't like to journal, is they don't want to face themselves, which to me means facing their souls. But you get soul to soul with yourself, you can't hide anymore. And so it's that beautiful thing of when you face yourself, when you face your truth, when you face that alignment and, that essence of who you are, when you face that and you're able to own whatever it is that you have not done to take care of yourself, there's something very humbling and transformative about that. And I have done journaling and burning and journaling and burning. I've done a lot of that myself in my life just to start releasing, or I should say continue releasing. And it's interesting how much it does transform a person. So it's really cleaning it out from that soul to soul perspective. And I don't necessarily think everybody needs therapy in order to do it, but boy, I'll tell you, most people really can be facilitated by going to therapy to release it. Now, what I will say about that, though, is that most therapists don't have this language either.
That's right.
So, that's it, is you can go to therapy, but, the cognitive behavioral therapy stays here up. It doesn't
doesn't go into here. Yes. Why do you think it's important for people in midlife to heal their soul? Why would you say that's important?
And I don't like the words midlife crisis. I like the words midlife opportunity.
Okay.
Because the fact is, midlife crises were all about, really, if you think about it, it's when people get to a certain point where they've been focusing on so many other things. Usually it's children, usually it's getting their finances in order, or whatever it is that they feel like they're buried under and they're just going for. And then they hit this point and they ask, what is this all there is?
Right.
That's what midlife crises are about, is people going through their lives going, why am I doing all this? What and so you wake up to the fact that you could redesign your life. So that's why it's important for soul-based living to become very important to someone in midlife, is that, really that's partially why I created this book and the model, the soul health model, is to give people a blueprint in figuring out what to clean out of your life and what to put into your life so that you can more fully and richly align. And so, kids are usually fairly raised, finances are usually somewhat in a better place. Some of the transitional life periods are behind you, and so it kind of opens up that space to do that sort of work. And frankly, most of my practice are people that are about 35 to 40 on, because they really are the ones that want to do that.
They're ready to do the work. They're ready to do the work. And, I'm in California, and you're in the Carolinas,
Yeah.
but you were still able to do a session with me. How can people work with you if they're not actually in front of you? How does that work? And what services do you offer?
Well, and that's a great question because I'm about to launch a bunch of other stuff too. If you want to really immerse yourself, I am launching some new retreats that are 3 to 4 day retreats that are really about immersing yourself in what I call women's radiance or self-love, depending on the theme. I have one that's coming up in October here at Lake Norman, which is beautiful, beautiful lake. So you can do retreats, although we can also do, I have done soul realignment sessions all over the world. I've had people from Sweden, Switzerland, India, Mexico, all over the world, Canada. And if you're interested in knowing what those sessions are about, all you have to do is go to my website at www.drkatherinetkelley.com and look under the services link, because I can do these sessions from anywhere, either Skype or Zoom or phone. The other thing that I am about to launch in January is and I haven't gotten all the information together yet, but people keep asking me from around the country, how do we get more time with you? And other than cloning myself, I'm not sure, other than I'm developing a soul coaching program that can basically get people to that point where they're feeling that radiance and understanding the blueprint much more. So if people are interested, I would love to hear from them, because I hear more and more people wanting to, develop that as well. I'm going to throw this in there too, in all of my spare time. One of the other things that I've been asked to do several times is to create, for practitioners who are listeners for your show, I've had many people ask me, gosh, do you have a soul health practitioner training so that I can really learn how to do this and help my clients or help my coaching clients or help my, whether it's a healthcare practice or whatever it might be. So I'm toying and kind of pulling information together for how to create that program as well, because so many people are finally starting to understand that the soul needs to be resurrected back into life.
Yes.
And they don't have the language, they don't have the tools, they don't have So there are lots of ways people can kind of glean that information, but I can do soul health coaching from anywhere in the world. So,
yes, and I think the mind, body, spirit wellness movement has really brought a lot of these kinds of things to the forefront, and people's awareness has been raised, and they're more open and receptive to looking further than what they've been traditionally taught or been told, and that makes all the difference. And I really truly believe that information is power, and putting your soul healing as a priority is probably one of the greatest empowerment tools of all. I know that has been true for me.
Well, and I think, like you said, it's not only are people being receptive, but I think people are starting to, without knowing what it is, I think people are knowing that something is missing.
Right.
And it's been interesting because I've been going through this marketing training program to, it's a different part of my brain that I haven't been used to, but I've been doing this huge marketing training program, and a lot of the coaches, probably every other coach said, oh, don't use the word soul, the media's not going to like that. And it was really interesting.
That's interesting.
At first it put me off, going, gosh, well, I'm wasting all this money. Why am I doing this?
Right.
But what it finally did for me, it confirmed that this is exactly what
you need to be doing, right? Because that's not the case. It's not true.
No, and it's I was wildly successful with promoting the first book. I think, in fact, you were my very first interview way back in 2015. Way back,
that's right. In it's 5 years.
Yeah.
Right, since that time, because I'm fascinated by this topic, and I know it's an important component of overall healing for wellness. In fact, I had this debate once about whether or not it should be mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul. And you'll be glad to know that I'm producing another podcast series called Wellness for Sisters, Mind, Body, Soul. Yeah. So the soul is, and I have another coaching program called Total Transformational Wellness, Mind, Body, Soul. So
wonderful.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
The more I can get using that word, the better.
Yeah, we're getting there. Dr. Kelley, thank you so much for your wisdom and for your support of our programs and our magazine. I want to make sure that people know where to find you. For those of you who are on the show page, listen to the show, or on YouTube, you can see her website right there, but go ahead and say it for those who are listening to us audio. What's your website again?
Well, a couple different ways. You can either go to Dr.KatherineTKelly.com. So it's DR and then KatherineTKelly.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just simply look up thesoulhealthmodel.com and it'll take you to that same page.
Okay.
So that'll get you there. And you can order the book off of that page, or you can look through a lot of the information that I offer. And I would love for you to join the newsletter as well, because I do monthly newsletters. And like I said,
I read them. They're wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah.
I'm gearing up to do a whole lot more. So I've got all those talks. I've got some talks in Seattle in about 3 weeks, and I'm moving around the country now. So I may be in your neck of the woods soon. So.
Oh, well, if you are, please give me a call and let me know. I'd love to meet you in person. I feel like I already know her.
I know.
We've been on so many times. But thank you so much for sharing and for, I think, opening a door that needs to be open, or a window that needs to be open for so many people who are searching ways to be well in their mind, their body, and their soul.
And thank you for being a sacred messenger of the story. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of you listening. It's so wonderful to be able to see you. I know I keep saying that, but this is such a wonderful medium to be able to hear and to see and to feel what it is that so many messengers like Dr. T. Kelly have to share with all of us. All things that are important in being well along your journey to wellness. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Join me next week when I'll have a new guest discussing a new topic that will aid you at every point on your wellness journey. For more information on how to strengthen your mind, body, and spirit, click the link on your screen to check out my e-magazine, Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond. Till next time, keep living your life like it's golden.
For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.